Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the world famous podcast, Beating the Press. Myself, Ty, and we've also got the wonderful Kristian with us as well today. You may well see me, if you're watching us, modelling our own Beating the Press top. If you would like to purchase one, just subscribe before you comment. And
Are we doing merch now? Is that what we're doing? Yeah.
we're doing that as an expansion because we've got so many followers. But yeah, guys, thanks for joining us. And as always, we say, if football's your kind of thing, please do that magical thing. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends and family, because pretty much that's all we talk about football. And we've got, if you look back into our sort of library, we cover pretty much every single topic going. So today's podcast will be a slightly different one. It's a focus on Mo Salah and his contract talks coming up. But we'll also have a look at other players as well. Chris will give us a bit more sort of meat on the bones, as I say, on this. So with that being said, I'll pass over to the brilliant Chris.
Yeah, so if you've watched us before, you know that we're avid Liverpool supporters, and there's a situation going on in the background which we are a little bit concerned about. Now, obviously, we're not just going to focus on Mo Salah today. We are going to focus on a number of different players, a number of different contracts that are dwindling to the end. And we're just going to focus on the bigger ones. And do the clubs actually need to be worried about it? But what we want to focus on, in particularly with Mo Salah, is that his contract seems to be going down, and currently is the best player in the world. It's kind of worrying to the point where we're starting to wonder, are FSG actively looking to sell Mo Salah, which is a cardinal sin to any Liverpool fan. I'm sure you'll agree, Ty.
Absolutely, yeah. I just want to say that's what you think. That's completely not my viewpoint, but carry on.
I'll be interested to hear your viewpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share our screen, and there's not only Mo Salah, whose contract is up in 2023. There's a couple of other players, which seems to be going under the radar, because obviously a lot's focused on Mo Salah at the moment because of the form that he's in. So we're just going to bring up the Liverpool players that are contracts that are about to expire, and we're just going to quickly go over those, and then we're going to move on to the other clubs and more pressing issues from the other clubs. So, as you can see on my screen, I have up all of the players that are contracts are going to expire in the summer of 2023. As you can see, it's quite concerning for Liverpool. We have our threesome up front, which is Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, and Bobby Firmino. It's very worrying that all of those players renewed at the same time, and obviously inadvertently their contracts run out at the same time. Ty, I'm just wondering, do you think that FSG, bearing in mind Mo Salah, I think he's due to turn 30 in around about 2 weeks' time. Sadio Mane is not far behind him, and Bobby Firmino's just turned 30, I think, within the last couple of months. Do you think FSG are actively looking to break that up and think about the next stage?
I don't think just yet. I think the other two are, if they were going to sell him, maybe. I just can't see it with Mo Salah, because he's a Liverpool legend. He's one of the greatest players to ever play for Liverpool. He's the best player in the world at the moment. We're talking about the issue with him. He's in turn 30. How much are you going to get for him? I mean, Barcelona have got no money. Real Madrid are in the very much the sort of free transfer market as well. Would he ever go to Man City? I don't think he'd want to jeopardise his Liverpool legacy by going there, potentially Bayern Munich, but Bayern Munich aren't big spenders. So you've got to sometimes think the absolute elite players, where they're going to go. And the only one that I can think of potentially is PSG. But Messi's playing in that position where he would, so Messi's always going to play. I just think it's the very tough negotiators. My understanding is they're not far off, getting the deal done. But the worrying thing, like you are, just why let it get this far? Because the way normally FSG do stuff is very much behind closed doors, and then they just announce it. So for this to sort of come out in the public domain on Twitter, social media, and people piping in with a 2 pennies worth, it's not great. But I think we'll get there eventually. But if he does go on a free next year, I might. I mean, if he doesn't sign a contract by the end of the season, it might be, I don't know, FSG, could they go to PSG right join him for 100 million?
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's ridiculous. He's worth so much more than that. So I think they'd be going all out to keep him, absolutely. The other players, are obviously, Mane is an interesting one as well. Do you know what I mean? I think these other contracts. I've not heard anything about them, so maybe they're a bit easier and people are getting. I know Ox has been mentioned, so I don't know. Maybe there's conversations about him doing well from now till July, and if he does, then he'll get a contract. But it's interesting.
Just thinking, just going back to Salah, do you think FSG are banking on that fact that we are in an era, like unprecedented era, in particular with COVID, where obviously you've got clubs that are suffering financially, including our own. However, like you say, there's not too many options available for Salah. Do you think FSG are banking on that perhaps, and kind of playing hardball with him for that particular reason? Because they've got to reward him, surely.
Yeah, they would. I do think they're businessmen. Do you know what I mean? Let's not fall in that trap that FSG care about Liverpool so much that they would sacrifice money for it. They don't. Do you know what I mean? They're businessmen. They're investors in sport. That's the way they run their business. That's what they do. So for us to sort of just have a think about it, I think it's tight, but I think eventually, I think they normally don't do it for players this old, but I think because it's Salah, he's the best in the world at the moment.
Yeah,
they'll just realise the uproar that you get from all Liverpool fans if that happened. I think it'd be almost FSG out. You know what I mean? It'll be that bad if he ever goes.
Yeah.
They didn't do
well, with Salah at the moment, his market value at the moment, they've got it down there as 90 million. If Mohamed Salah went now, you're looking maybe upwards of 150, something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm thinking double that. I'm thinking double that. That's what I'm looking at.
Would it not be a reasonable assumption to think that they could be potentially thinking about cashing in and looking at it's an easy one to throw out just because his name's all over the place, particularly in the media at the moment. Well, let's say, for example, Haaland was available, 190 million. You're effectively going to trade Mohamed Salah for Erling Haaland. Do you not think that that's a viable option?
We're living in dream world, aren't we? If we're saying that, if football works so simple and so easy, and these transfers happen as smoothly as that, and they're like, well, we can get him. He's 30. We're thinking Haaland's 21. He's got 10 years, and then that makes a lot of sense. Do you know what I mean? There's obviously a lot of Haaland can obviously improve as he grows older. Salah's reaching his peak. The thing with it is at the moment, he's probably got another 3 or 4 years, Salah. And like at the top level, but having said that, it's probably got longer because Klopp says he looks after himself so well. You look at Ronaldo still going, so look, Messi going. So I think the game's changed now from thinking people are 33, 34. You've almost got to move the shift the goalposts and take into account how players look after their bodies. You get to 37 or 30, and if you're playing well, then fair enough. I remember the Milan team of the early 2000s, the whole team was sort of late 30s, early 40s, but they were brilliant.
Yeah.
They looked after themselves. They had, brilliant nutritionists and sports scientists, everything. I mean, now it's advanced even further than that. So it is very much, how much you do. But then there's obviously the style of play Liverpool play as well. It's very sort of high intensity. Ronaldo's obviously coming short on that because he's not a great presser, and now especially with his age, but Salah's so far off that, so it doesn't come into the conversation, I don't think. In fact, I'd say if Haaland was available at that price, I'd pay it regardless of Salah. Do you know what I mean? Not because of it. I'd get Michael Edwards to do his job and getting rid of all the Jordan Ives for 20 million and get rid of 6 of them. You know what I mean? It's just trying to sort of think, you're not going to get rid of Salah. I don't see it. I mean, if you ask me now, I think he signs a contract.
I personally can't say. That's what I was about to ask you. I was just going to run down them there. Do you think? So you think Mohamed Salah is obviously going to sign a contract? Mane, Firmino, do you think they'll sign on it for another term?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll probably get a contract. So 23, they'll probably extend it by about another 3 years, and then that'll be. I think that makes sense, doesn't it? Because they'll all be 30, then you've got another 3 years. So 33, 34. That's the one where it's a decision. Not when you're 29 and 30. Not the way these guys look after themselves.
Just staying with Liverpool, just real quick. Obviously, you see there Naby Keita, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, both players very injury prone, not had the greatest success. We kind of expected, I think, more from Naby Keita coming with the price tag that he did. When he's in the team, he looks great. When he's not, he's rarely in the team. To be fair, and Ox, he seems to be. I think he's one of the most used midfielders this year, and it's probably been his best spell. But Do you think that they're looking to extend their contracts, or do you think maybe they'll let one go or not?
We had this conversation before. Remember last year we had all those injuries, and then you got Naby Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain constantly injured. It's like, why are you even here? Do you know what I mean? We need players that have got good. Like, look at Wijnaldum, you look at Milner, you look at Fabinho. You know what I mean? Fabinho, I know he had a long injury, but generally when they're there, they're playing for long periods of time. It feels like Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita are sort of playing 5 games and they're out for 10, and they come back and it's like play 3. Do you know what I mean? And then they can't get any rhythm into the game. So into their games. But yeah, I mean, them two are the questionable ones for me. But I think they'd be looking to, what they'd probably do is get them to sign a contract and then sell them, because obviously you get more money. So it's trying to be smart. You still want to get contracts with all of them because they're assets, aren't they?
Yeah. Just before we move on to the other guys, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to the players that are actually the contracts that are ending this year. So obviously you've got Divock Origi and James Milner in particular. Karius and Adrian, I presume that they're just going to move on. We probably replace them quite easily. Well, I think we only need to probably replace one of them, and then we've got Kelleher as a backup. Origi and Milner, what do you see in their future?
I think Origi, I know they'll extend that unless a club comes in and offers. I think it's 25 million has been touted about. I think Burnley were mentioned. I think even Newcastle were mentioned as well. But Milner, I think it's time for him to sort of. I don't know. I think Klopp does like him, but I just think when he plays, he doesn't really. He comes on, he fouls, and that's what he does. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't like the one against Chelsea. That first free kick was just ridiculous. Yeah. I think we're moving away from Milner. It's as good a servant as he has been for us. Football does eventually, once you've got.
Yeah, I think you have to if you want to move forward. Yeah, I think you have to if you want to move forward. Yeah. So the next one that we're looking at is contracts that are expiring from other clubs all around the world. These are the most high-profile ones that are going to be expiring this summer. So you've got we'll just go through the top 3 initially. You've got Kylian Mbappe, Paul Pogba, and Paulo Dybala. What do you see in the future of those 3?
Mbappe is a really interesting one, because Real Madrid put a £200 million bid in for the start of the season to get him, even though he was leaving, his contract was expiring. But there's nothing being signed. I know when they signed Alaba, it was done sort of 1st of January. I actually think there's a chance he might stay with PSG. Again, that's up in the air. We'll see where that goes. The Pogba one's really interesting because obviously there's a whole uncertainty about who's going to be the next manager anyway. But I think Man United is I don't know if they're a mess, but as a club, surely you'd want to get him sign him a contract and then sell him. But unfortunately, they've left it so late now that it's completely out of their hands. So Pogba and Mino Raiola can go and fill their pockets and go to wherever they want. Dybala, I think he's a player that seems to always be almost, it's the conversation about him, his contract's running out, who's going to go, where's he going to go, and it's actually happening now. So I think, there'll be every club in the world will be after him. I'm surprised Haaland's not on that list as well. He's going to be obviously, wanted by every single one. Again, nothing's happened with that. And just one other one I want to pick from there is Antonio Rudiger at Chelsea. He's obviously been brilliant for him since Tuchel's come in. There's talk about the top teams in Europe wanting him, and I'd be really surprised if Chelsea let him go, because he's a good defender for them. And he fits the system, the way they play really well, and he's improved massively under Tuchel. I didn't think he was great under Lampard, but he seems to have brought a different side to his game. And then they've got Christensen as well there, which is that, you want to get they're good defenders then, you want to keep them, because if they go, you can't rely on Thiago Silva, who's like 59 in the end, do you know what I mean? And it's just shot non-stop. So, but yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. And you've also got, Jesse Lingard at the bottom there, who's, where's he going to,
Yeah, there are some quality players.
Yeah, just sort of going back to when it all started, when Bosman decided, I don't think he ever envisaged it being this big and this. He was thinking about those clubs at lower leagues. Do you know what I mean? When their contract's going to run out and they want to choose to decide their own future, and they can go get a signing on fee. I don't think he ever thought about players that were already multi-millionaires. Like Richard.
Players do use it as a proper bargaining chip these days, don't they? Like for example, Kylian Mbappe. I read something earlier today where PSG could potentially sign him on like a couple of month contract or 6 month contract, just so they can get some kind of feedback for him from Real Madrid. But if he signs that type of contract, he's looking at £1 million a week. Now, obviously, this is tabloid talk. But like you say, I don't think Bosman had any intention on this being the outcome of what he was fighting for. Paul Pogba, I agree with you. It's very rare that a player signs on in his last year, never mind his last 6 months. And, with the way things going, I think it's a good omen. I think whoever comes in to Manchester United, they'll probably find it a bit of a blessing that Paul Pogba has gone, just because it's one less headache they've got to deal with. But just looking at the rest of that list, like some of the names that are out there, Newcastle, I'm surprised they're not filling their boots with the likes of, Frank Kessie. You've got Brozovic there, like you said, Rudiger, Ousmane Dembele, a bit injury prone, Belotti, Zakaria. There's quite a good few players on there. And obviously you've got Lacazette and Lingard. They're probably the most high-profile Premier League players that are on the rest of that list. What do you see happening with Lacazette and Lingard?
I mean, you've got to think, as a player, if you leave Arsenal, where you're going to go? I think Lacazette's at his level. Do you know what I mean? He's not really going to go much higher than that. I think the fact that Aubameyang looks like he's on his way out, I think Lacazette's obviously going to be first choice centre forward for him. But Arsenal have got a habit of doing this, of letting the contract run out and then players leaving. They've got a history of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if he does go, but I just think for him as Arsenal should just say, right, we'll give you this signing on if you stay with us, you know what I mean? The Lingard one, I think Man United just completely messed him about, you know what I mean? They said to him, they'll give him more game time. He's coming on for like 3-4 minutes at the end of a game. It's just ridiculous, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the way that they're treating their players is quite ridiculous. Like, you've seen how good a time he had at West Ham, how good he was. We're not obviously his biggest fans, but there's clearly a player there. He's a Premier League player, like maybe not towards the top end of the Premier League, but he'll do a job.
I mean, the Lingard one's really interesting. I mean, Lingard and Van der Beek, I mentioned them both because the way he wants to play in the 4-4-2 box, you've got Lingard and Van der Beek, for me, will be perfect players as the sort of advanced midfielders. They press well, they're good on the ball, they can play both sides of the game, well, in and out of possession, and the transition game is really good. And then he's putting like wingers there, you know what I mean, who aren't really good out of possession, and their pressing's dog shit. So I don't get that, you know what I mean? You talk about a certain profile. I know we were talking about managers coming in and wanting a certain profile of player. Lingard and Van der Beek, for me, seems an absolute perfect fit for Ranieri, but yet he's still not playing when he's bringing on for 2-3 minutes. I don't understand managers at times, you know. It is what it is.
That could be a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at that list, and obviously, we feature quite heavily these days. Newcastle feature quite heavily in our podcast. There's no one there that they could think to pick up, and I want to put another one to you as well that's not on that list, who is actually actively looking for a club, particularly because there's a World Cup coming at the end of the year, and that's Eriksen. Eriksen's obviously been let go by Inter Milan because I don't think he fits. I don't think he passes a fitness test. Are
so
applicable to players
in Italy. Once you've had a heart issue, and I'm not exactly a technical issue, but the insurance doesn't cover that player, so they have to come to a mutual agreement. Now he's absolutely fine to play in every other European league. My understanding is Brentford are interested because. Thomas Frank used to be his manager at youth level, so obviously a lot of Norgard there as well, who's Danish, and then there has been sort of a conversation with Newcastle. I mean, it makes sense, you get him in. I mean, for Newcastle, I can see, I heard this, I can't remember when I heard it, I think it might be on TalkSport, actually. I can see Newcastle having a really mad last week of the window, and depending on how they're just getting these players in. I mean, Tarkowski, they need a centre-half, he's running out at the end of the season, but then it's like Burnley. Would you let him go? Lingard, I'd be trying to get him in, but again, I don't think I think there's talk about Todd Cantwell going as well, but that's nothing's happened there. They obviously need. I mean, they've got Chris Wooding, which is really good. I'd probably go for another striker as well, and they need a centre half. I mean, they were talking about getting Keylor Navas in as well, weren't they? So yeah, Newcastle are just the thing is at the moment with Newcastle, they're getting linked with so many players, you don't know which one they're actually going to go for. So it's great for tabloid journalists at the moment.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to having a last day, a last day transfer frenzy, because it's rare that we have them these days. Remember when, the likes of Andy Carroll went to Liverpool? I think it was might have been, was it Luis Suarez? Might have went 1 year, and Andrea Sharvin and all that. It was kind of
Robinho as well coming in last minute from Man City. That was
Yeah, it was an occasion. Like, it was always an occasion. Like, to throw up surprises. But the last few have been quite boring, and I'm hoping that Newcastle kind of bring it to life, so to speak. So lastly, what we're going to end on is the players that are expiring on 2023. Obviously, we spoke about Mo Salah. These are players that can start talking to clubs from next January. The January coming. So so we've got Raheem Sterling on there. We've already covered Mo Salah. So next high profile one is Raheem Sterling, Marcus Rashford, and we'll throw in Serge Gnabry because he's a player I rate. What do you think of those three?
I think Sterling's an interesting one. There was talk about him saying I want to play regularly, but he seems to have sort of overtaken Grealish there, and he's playing there. I think Rashford, I don't know what's happened to Rashford. He's just fallen off a cliff, and he don't feel like he's
That's
there.
Going to be a very interesting one.
Yeah, see what the new managers. Some of them are like, really interesting. I think Bayern Munich. I think Gnabry could go. Bayern Munich is such a club where they seem to lose top players, but then they bring in better top players, don't they? So I think most of Europe will be after Serge Gnabry if he became available. And there's obviously Jan Oblak as well, the keeper. But I think you'd think Atletico Madrid will get that tied up and done it. And the most sort of obvious one there is for me anyway is N'Golo Kante. He's one of those players where I think if you give him a decent contract, he'll just sign it and go because he's a very humble sort of guy, innit? I can't see him kicking up too much of a fuss. But again, he is 30, so it's up to Chelsea, like how long do you want it? But he's one of those players that he's so full of energy. I don't think it. Again, you talk about Mo Salah, he can go on for another 3 or 4 years. But it'll just be interesting. I just think it's really interesting that every club has got a different strategy to think, when players are running out of contract. Surely you get a ping when someone's like 2.5 years out that we need to have this conversation and get him in for another thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And sometimes to me it feels like the clubs, it's just thrown on them and they didn't realise the guy's running out of contract next season and then they're panicking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that player obviously knows, well, if I stay, I can get more money. Because ultimately, every player wants more money.
It's often the players that do go under the radar. It's like Chelsea are pretty much in a similar situation to us. You can see there, like you mentioned, Kante, got Jorginho there as well. So it's going to be an interesting time for them. But just the most noticeable ones that I really kind of want to finish on is you've got Robert Lewandowski. You would imagine that he's going to finish his career at Bayern. He's still going. He, like Ronaldo, he could probably go for another 5 years, or potentially could they trade him in. I don't know whether I want to use that word, but Haaland is obviously up for grabs, going to be up for grabs that season. And then the last one I want you to comment on is Lionel Messi. Any chance he might fancy a go at Newcastle by then?
I don't think Messi would. Honestly, if Newcastle stay up and they're in Champions League, who knows? The issue with it is Messi will be 36. But Messi's he's one of those players who I think can go and play even, for another 2, 3, 4 years just because of the type of player he is. He doesn't seem to waste energy in the game. You'll see him standing about a lot, so he'll just come into life for say, it'll probably come into life for say 5 or 6 2-minute spells, and that'll be it, and that'll be enough to win a game or change a game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, efficiency.
Yeah, exactly. And Lewandowski then is 34, isn't it? Well, it's 33, so he'll be 35 when his time's up. Bayern Munich going to be thinking, well, how long do we give him a contract for? Well, he'll want a big contract. He might want to move to MLS. He might want to move. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes when players get to that stage in their career, they're thinking, well, we just want to make it easier for our families. We want to live in not a better country, a country probably that's a warmer country. Do you know what I mean? Most of these are like in Northern Europe, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the rundown of pretty much the top players in the world that contracts are expiring at the moment. There's quite a few interesting ones in there, and I think Newcastle will have a lot to say in the coming years in relation to maybe a couple of these players. But yeah, as always, if you've actually managed to make it to this point of the podcast, as we always say, like, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, put them all in the comments down below. We answer every question that's put to us, any comment, we reply to them all. So, Ty, have you got us a question of the day?
I have, yeah. So we've gone through, obviously, Mo Salah as the main point. We've sort of covered all the main players that are going to, well, the big players that are looking like we're going to be reading over the next 2 years. My question to all you guys is, or girls, which player from all those players that we mentioned, or any players that have contracts running out, would you like your club to buy? So whoever your club is, and you think like, okay, do you know what I mean? We'd love Tarkowski, you know what I mean? We're Brighton, we'd love Tarkowski coming. Whoever it is, be realistic as well, because you know Burnley get relegated, you're not getting Messi. So let's just be realistic with it all and think about it. But if that's what you really want to put down, please do, and we will respond to it, even if we do say you are full of shit. So yeah,
I'm just thinking, Ty, there. I'm just going to quickly put that to you. If there was any player realistically there that you saw for Liverpool, who would you like?
Mbappe.
Good answer.
I say it's realistic because he's obviously spoke about wanting to play for Liverpool and being a big admirer of Klopp. The thing is, we are one of the top elite clubs in the world, so we can get. The issue with us, for us, is finance. Do you know what I mean? It's whether FSG is going to put the money in the pocket. You know, Man City can quite easily, you know, they've got Grealish for 100 million who's just sitting on the bench. It don't make a difference to them. If we pay 100 million quid for the player, he's playing every single week, do you know what I mean? And everyone's sucking him off. So it's different levels, isn't there, to players and clubs and what they can spend and what they can accept as success or failure from players that they've bought.
Absolutely. Yeah, so as I was saying before, if you like this podcast and you've watched it all the way to this point, please like, click, share, do all that good stuff down below. Again, we will reply to all your comments if you put something down there. And if you want to chat, as Ty always says, just if you want to have a little chat, just put it in there. Ty will reply to you, no problem. Got now
yeah. As long as the 2 kids are in bed and I've got nothing else to do. But as always, guys, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one. See you. Bye.
See you later, guys.